What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. We are going to be back in Forza Horizon 4 today. It is the beginning of Series 18, it is summer, and with that we got a new vehicle. I was about to say car, but this is not a car this time. We actually got the 2006 Hummer H1 Alpha open top. I actually live streamed me unlocking this earlier on YouTube, so if you guys haven't already subscribed, think about doing that, because I do live stream all of the new series just about, and I also do like WRCA project cars too, just random stuff, whatever I feel like playing. As you can see, I did knock some other stuff out for this season just to kind of fill the stream out a little bit. We are at about 50% completion, and I will show you guys a couple of these cars real quick available. We do have some pretty awesome cars available for this series, starting with the Ford Mustang Hot Wheels Edition. We also have the MC12 Forza Edition, the Rimac Concept 2, which is my personal favorite PR car. If you guys watch my videos or live streams, you probably already know that. Over here for the trial for this season, you also have the MC12 Corsa 08. For other rare cars, we also have the Chevy Chevelle 67 Super Sport. Another one that we've had a couple chances to get, but it's still kind of rare to see that car, and it's kind of hard to get a hold of. And also the Volkswagen GRC Beetle. There's two different versions of this. I'm not sure which one it is or which one's more rare at this point, but both of them are kind of expensive still, so worth getting it if you don't already have it. Now that we got that knocked out of the way, we will jump over here into Forza Vista. We'll go around the car real quick. I already have it upgraded. I actually have two different tunes built for this thing, and we're going to talk about that a little bit here real quick too. One tune I have built for racing, it's just a maxed out stock engine, which we'll go into power figures and stuff later. But basically, I did not throw like the off-road race tires on it. I left the regular off-road tires because they tend to do pretty well on the Hummer H1 Alpha, like wagon or whatever it is that we already had, so I didn't bother switching that. This does look slightly different than what the standard H1 Alpha wagon we have did on the inside. The colors are a little bit different, I want to say. Nothing too crazy. If you've already seen one H1 Alpha, you already know. And speaking of H1 Alpha, an interesting thing about the H1 Alpha is it's only produced for 1 year. They actually manufactured it in 05 and 06, but they were all only sold as an 06 production year. This was also the only year you could get the 6.6 liter Duramax mated to the Allison transmission, and it put out about the same power figures it did in the Chevy pickup truck. I believe it was the 4500 that it was available in. The H1 body style was produced from 92 to 06, but like I said, the Alpha was only available 1 year. They did put an extra 2-inch body lift on this to actually be able to clear the setup for the turbo and engine, because it is a taller engine than the previous one. There was actually quite a variety of engines offered for the H1, including the 6.2 Detroit diesel V8, 6.5 Detroit diesel V8, 5.7 Vortec, which I've actually seen one of those in person. They're not that common, honestly. The 6.5 turbo Detroit diesel, and then the 6.6 turbo Duramax. Now, another interesting tidbit about the Hummers, these trucks were actually all built about 40 minutes away from where I've lived pretty much my whole life. I've actually been by the plant quite a few times. They actually have a testing ground, which is absolutely insane. If you've never seen it, go on YouTube, look up videos of them taking the Hummers out and testing them out. Very near their factory. And I've actually seen a couple of H2s out there when they were out just doing some of the testing. It's one of the craziest, most intense off-road courses I've ever seen. And it's so awesome that it was so close to where I grew up at, I was able to see that. So these cars kind of hold a special place in like my childhood because of that. Because my cousin's dad actually lived right near there, so we went past there quite a bit when I would go up there to stay with him at his dad's house. So I'd been past the plant quite a few times. But the biggest impact this specific version of the Hummer, the open top, has on my childhood is probably from Test Drive Off-Road. If you guys remember that game, it was such a huge series back on PlayStation 1, and the Off-Road series was one of my favorites, and I drove this thing such an insane amount in that game. It obviously wasn't the Alpha. I'm pretty sure Test Drive Off-Road was released before the Alpha was ever out, but it's the same body style. Anyways guys, we're going to jump over here to customization. We'll just kind of browse through all the conversions and just the different specific mods for this vehicle. We're not going to go into every little detail that you can do on basically anything in the game. So we can do the 6.2 V8, the LS swap obviously, the 8.4 V10, 6.5 V12, the Racing 7.2 V8. This would probably make a really good option if you were seriously wanting to try to race this thing. what I did was I built a race version of this, maxing the stock engine out, which is a little different than what I was actually trying to take it out and race it online. Because you're not going to be competitive with this, I'll tell you that right now. Even in A-Class, you're going to be really struggling. If you for some reason wanted to swap it to rear-wheel drive, you can go ahead and do that. Now, this I believe is a little different than the wagon. I could have to go back and actually double check the customization. But we have, this is the stock bumper, obviously the wagon's the same. This right here I do not believe was an option on the wagon. I believe the Forza arrow on that one wasn't even the same as this one is. I don't believe it has the light bar, and I think what it actually was is a skid plate with like a wing at the bottom of the skid plate. If somebody is watching this and you want to leave it down in the comments and double check me if I'm right or not, I'd appreciate it, but I'm almost positive that's what it is for this. And then on the back, I think everybody was kind of expecting it. I was really hoping we get something a little different, like maybe the like the Baja style truck tire in the back with a little cage around it, the fuel cell fillers, that type of thing. And this is something I thought was kind of funny. If you, for some reason you guys wanted to build like a 90s Rappers Hummer H1, you can definitely do that. You can go all the way up to a 24 on some pretty skinny tires, to be completely honest, for the Hummer H1, if you wanted to do that. And you can actually lower this quite a bit, I believe. That's another thing too. This thing was like all over marketing and publications when I was growing up, because rappers, athletes, anybody with money that wanted some kind of like luxury SUV, at the time the Hummer was the thing to get. So I do have this thing on race brakes. This thing definitely could use it. As you can see, this thing is on tiny brakes from the factory. And I want to point out here while we're in this view, because I didn't mention it in Forza Vista, one of the things that makes the Hummer H1 so amazing, especially off-roading, as you guys can see, basically nothing hangs down lower than the wheels because it uses portal axles. And what that means is basically the drive shaft sits up a little higher under the vehicle. There's like actually like a center console. You can kind of see it here. That is actually where the drivetrain is running. You're basically sitting next to the axles, and it runs to the front and rear axles at the top of the axle instead of the center of the differential. And there's a gear that turns on the inside and rotates the actual pinion inside the gear housing. Sorry, I'm trying to think of how to explain this simply so people understand what I mean. Basically, it's a gear on top, a gear on bottom that rotates, but because it has that gear on top, your drive shaft's able to run really tightly up against the body, so you have all this clearance where normally the drive shafts would hang down and get banged up. Rambling aside, we are on rally springs. Stock ride height looks basically the same. It doesn't change, honestly, anything. I'm not going to worry about roll bars. And this is one thing I was happy about when I was checking out the customization. It does not add some weird roll cage if you want to go ahead and go to the max chassis reinforcement on this. I was kind of worried they were going to like throw this random weird secondary roll cage in it. Luckily, not the case. So starting out, this thing is about the same weight as the wagon, 7,600 pounds here. You can bring it all the way down to 5,700 pounds, which for an H1 Hummer would be insane to get it that light. Now, we're not going to go through all the power upgrades. I just want to show you guys the final power figure. Horsepower is not that crazy. We are sitting at 827 horsepower on this the stock Duramax engine. It's not the stock engine, the factory engine, I should say. But look at those torque numbers, 1,434 foot-pounds of torque, which is like an earth-moving amount of torque. Which is why I wanted to leave the stock motor. I thought it'd be a really cool thing to kind of test out and try to do a race with this setup, because we are only going to do one race with this. After that, I'm going to take this thing out and do more of what it's actually designed for, which is off-roading. I've never done a video like that. We did a little bit in the live stream earlier, but let's not waste any more time, guys. I've talked enough about this thing. Let's go ahead and head out here. Alright guys, now that we are out here in free roam, I'll let you guys get a little audio clip because I did not start it in Forza Vista, so I'm going to shut up for just a second here for you guys. Gotta say, it sounds pretty nasty for a diesel. Oh wow, it actually gets louder looking in the back of the car. I've never noticed that because I don't really ever get to use a controller that much either. That's actually pretty cool that they added that feature in. It does sound really good though, I gotta say. So we will drive here an exterior view for a little bit. If I stall it trying to pull out, forgive me guys. This gearing on this is a little wonky, especially being a diesel. I'm still trying to get There it is. Still trying to get like fully adjusted to it again. So like I said, guys, the factory where GM actually produced these, I believe they still do manufacture the military Humvees, brand new there. I honestly positive they do, because as far as I know, they're still in use and they still need new ones. But back when I was going past there growing up, I have not been past there in probably close to 10 years, I want to say. You would see a lot of H1 Hummers out there sitting outside the factory, but I never got to see any on the test trails, which really sucks. I've seen videos of them there, but I never got to see it in person. I really would have loved to, because they're just so monstrous off-road. They're not fast, they're not pretty, they are pretty cool looking, I gotta say. I really have always loved the look of the Hummer H1. But they definitely can get just about, or get over just about anything. Wow, I was having this issue earlier on the stream. I just cannot talk today. But yeah, if you guys have never seen videos of these things being tested at their facility, you really should go on YouTube, do a quick search, try to find some, because it's really amazing what they would put these things through from the factory. But they've got to be able to withstand that kind of abuse, because they are military purpose vehicles. They're made to go through the most extreme conditions. And even here in Forza, they can handle just about anything, which is a lot of why I wanted to do more off-roading in this video and less like racing, because this thing's not in any way designed for racing. You can make it good for it in Forza because of the engine swaps and stuff, but it's just not that great. Oh, I forgot to switch back to the interior cam. Good thing this thing gives me a little bit off the line there to... Okay, everybody's just going over the wall. But as I was saying, to switch up my view... Whoa! Was not expecting this thing to want to slide out that much in the rear, but we aren't on the off-road race tires, so we will suffer a little bit of traction. Thing is literally like a tank though. It's just not slowing down at all. Hey, this is one of the areas I was actually planning on bringing this thing to do some off-roading. The riverbed is really fun during summer because it is really low and gets a lot of different varied terrain to be able to take something off and do some crawling off-roading on. That's one thing about Forza Horizon I really love, is just the variety of stuff you're able to do if you're just kind of creative and try to drive as realistically as possible. Especially on a sim rig like this. It has fairly decent mechanics to do off-roading stuff. Not the greatest, like, in terms of, like, off-road grip levels and, like, being able to do really in-depth rock crawling. You can crawl some rocks. Some of them are basically impossible. But just as a whole, the mechanics for Forza work well enough for off-roading and, like, trail driving. What just happened? I think my suspension just compressed completely and got stuck in the ground. Luckily, we can view the replay real quick and see what happened. Yeah, we went straight into the ground. So this is definitely going to be staying in the video. That's one very strange bug. There's been a few vehicles that do similar things to that, but I have not seen one in quite some time. Okay, let's see if we can take the landing this time without that happening again. It might be because of how heavy the vehicle is and how soft I have the suspension, plus the fact we're landing on the beach. There we go. That threw me off so much I completely forgot what we were talking about. It was something about like off-roading mechanics. They are good enough though, just to be able to get out, do some trail crawling, do some little rock crawling adventures, and have fun doing that type of stuff, and just kind of relax, have some fun and unwind doing stuff you can't really do in many other titles at all. Especially, really no other titles with the level of like customization and just like how huge the map is in Forza Horizon. Like Mudrunner on PC obviously have mods and stuff, but on console there's not really many options that are even near that. I actually managed to pull out a win in this thing. I'm honestly surprised, especially with how it was feeling at the beginning of the race there. Alright guys, so we do have our crawler tune loaded up on this thing now. And we're going to go ahead and just make our way across the beach. We're going to start at like the, I believe it'd be the outlet. Yeah, it'd be the outlet of the river down here by the beach. I will drive with the controller just for a second here so you guys can see just how much suspension articulation we have on this thing. I have it just about as soft as you can go. I believe my rebound dampening in the front's only at like 3.2 or something like that. So you can only go a little bit lower on that. I'm at like 1.2 bump stiffness, I want to say, on the front, so super low settings. You can see though, this thing just absolutely loves this type of stuff with this setup on it. It's just really relaxing. You actually get a chance to kind of just check out the views that Horizon has to offer, which, especially driving in cockpit view on a wheel all the time, you don't really get to enjoy a whole lot of. Kind of send it over some of these dunes here. Oh, just about rolled it. You can see though, it takes those jumps and stuff super well. It just kind of soaks it up and just rolls away. It doesn't really upset it too much. That's usually what I try to get going with most of the setups I do with stuff like this. I have quite a few trucks and stuff I've built as just to be crawlers and trail vehicles. Alright guys, so we're at the mouth of the river just about. We're a little off to the side of it. We're going to start on this little hill here. I know for a fact this thing will make it up. Obviously, I already did a little test run with it. I was not... Oh. This is the nice thing about having a handbrake on your sim brake, because it's kind of hard to get this thing moving off the line without the brake. There we go. Easily up the hill once I was able to get it moving. Now this section I did earlier today, heading down this little incline. We got to be really careful, take it really easy, just kind of ride the brakes down. But if we are super careful, I can switch to the controller for just a second. Our tire is kind of in the rock, a little unrealistic there, but we are just slowly crawling our way down the rocks here. Little tiny bump on the skid plate on the front, little bump on the rear bumper, but we made it pretty well over there. Or made it over there pretty clearly anyways. Didn't really scrape too much. And that was one of the biggest things about the Hummer that made it so just like formidable in off-roading situations, is it's able to take on such massive inclines and declines because of its angle of approach with the skid plates in the front, and just the way the body is shaped and how stubby of a nose and tail it has. There's not really much there to get hung up on and drag. So since the river is basically all the way at the bottom, we can kind of just fly through this little section here. Switch back to the controller for you guys for just a minute here so we can get a little side angle of this thing as we go over these bumps. It's really awesome how much the suspension does move here in Horizon on like these off-road vehicles when you get a really soft setup. You can really see just how springy and bouncy this thing is, which we are moving at about 20 miles an hour. If you hit a bump like that at that kind of speed, you're going to bounce the car a little bit, especially on super soft suspension like this. It's going to be pretty springy. A little exaggerated, a little floaty, but they didn't do a bad job at all for getting the physics somewhat close. Especially for something that's supposed to basically be mainly an arcade style of game. Because of the massive amount of torque this thing has, we can just like really just brake boost this thing and build boost up. You can see where I released the brake for just a second there, it really just started to kick up some dust. Alright guys, so we did go ahead and fast travel over here to the quarry. This is another place I like to really just head over to, have some fun off-roading. If you try to avoid taking out most of the small trees and not just the big ones... Oh, gotta get some RPMs up so we can get this thing moving here. It really does make the trails a lot more difficult to get through. It makes it a lot more challenging, but it is more realistic that way. Unless you're like driving near saplings, you're really not going to be pushing your luck and trying to really just drive over trees. such a fine point for the actuation. Come on, pull it up. There we go. So that's what I'm talking about. This thing gets so much grip once it does start pulling and getting to that power band and getting some torque build up. It's just insane for stuff like this. And I hope you guys aren't getting too bored watching this video. I hope it's somewhat entertaining for you guys. Hopefully some of you watching this actually enjoy off-roading and don't just want the Hummer to race for some odd reason. I don't remember where it was, but there's a spot out here near the quarry in the woods where I found a tree that's like actually down and the roots are all uprooted out of the ground. It was really cool. That's one of the things I really enjoy about doing this so much in Horizon is there's just cool stuff like that all over the map hidden. Now let's pull a Yui here because there is some nice rocks to actually put this thing through its paces a little bit with crawling over this way. See if we're actually not too wide to make it to the end of this overlooking the quarry here. We might be. The Bronco is really pushing it when I actually did it with it, or did this with it. Come on. Let's see how that looks here. That's not too wide, just really, really close for sure. Now, one of the really awesome things about the Hummer H1 in real life is you can push them pretty hard on a trail at some pretty reasonable speed, and they will take the abuse. They just might thrash you a little bit along the ride. They are pretty rough riding factory a lot of times. You can kind of remedy to that with upgrading the suspension, different spring rates, that type of thing, obviously. But out of the factory, they actually are a fairly stiff riding vehicle. Make our way around the trees, then we can cut back here now that it's clearing up. Oh, right up here is that tree, I think. I believe it's just a little bit around this section of the quarry off to the side here in the woods. It is insane this thing is able to keep moving on this steep of an incline. It's wanting to slide down just a little bit, but we've got just enough power and grip to keep us moving around here. Oh, now we're going to slide down. Oh, we took a tree out. We're like buried in trees right now. I have no idea where we're at, guys. Oh, is this that tree right here, actually? Nope. Yes. Maybe. No, that's just the trees I broke, and we are literally hanging off the ledge. I wonder if there's any way I can get this thing backed up. There we go. That's definitely one way down. Let's see if we can actually get this thing. Oh my god, I didn't think it was actually going to let me drive up that rock. Well, guys, let's see if we can get to the top of this little rock right here. And after that, we're going to call it a day on this video. I'm going to keep this one kind of short. I just want to have a little fun, do some crawling in this thing. I didn't want to go too crazy in depth with the review. It's a good thing this thing has a roll cage, just because it is basically the same as the wagon variant, which we already had in the game. But I wanted to go out, do a little off-roading. Maybe you guys will get the idea to take out, have a little fun, do some off-roading yourself. So it's not something you see a whole lot in Horizon, even in like photography groups and that sort of thing, role-playing groups. I really just don't see it, which is kind of a shame because we have a beautiful map for it. It's just unfortunately times like this, the mechanics for the game doesn't always work the best for off-roading. In real life, you could eventually probably work your way up there in this Hummer, realistically, especially considering we're kind of like glitching into the rocks. Unfortunately, in Horizon, it's not fully designed to work perfectly for off-roading, so stuff like that happens. For the most part, though, you can have a pretty good time doing this type of thing, so I highly suggest you guys get out and do it yourself. I suggest you guys get this truck if you don't already have it. It's probably going to be quite a while before it's back and available in any type of way again anytime soon. Anyways, guys, if you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you taking your time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like button down below, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Perfect landing.